Imagine right now that you are trying to build the ultimate leader.
Right, like the perfect CEO or head of state.
Exactly. And from childhood, we're all taught that they should be honest, merciful, and deeply moral.
Always play by the rules, always be the bigger person.
But what if the single greatest piece of political advice ever written argues that being a consistently good person will actually get you killed?
And I mean, not just killed, it will bring absolute ruin to everyone relying on you. We are so conditioned to view leadership through this lens of moral purity.
Well, today we are taking an absolute hammer to that lens. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah, we've got a really fascinating stack of sources for you to look at today.
We do. We're looking at excerpts from Niccolo Machiavelli's infamous political treatise, The Prince. And alongside that, a brilliant but, lesser-known biographical sketch he wrote about a mercenary commander named Castruccio Castracani.
Machiavelli's name is thrown around a lot today. I mean,
Right.
we use Machiavelli in a shorthand for a villain plotting in a cubicle.
Right, like a cartoon bad guy.
Exactly. But our mission today is to bypass those centuries of cliché and look at how he actually defines strength, courage, and leadership.
Think about the corporate leaders or politicians you see today. We demand that they show absolute moral consistency.
We really do.
But Machiavelli's political survival guide is heavily tied to the expectations of his era, specifically regarding what it meant to be a decisive, quote-unquote, man in public life.
For him, projecting unwavering, unapologetic strength wasn't just a toxic ego trip. It was the fundamental architecture of power.
So to understand that architecture, we first have to recognize the chaotic reality of Renaissance Italy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this was a time of endless warfare, constantly shifting alliances, and just brutal betrayal.
It was a mess.
It really was. And if a leader prioritized their own moral purity over the brutal necessities of the moment, their city would be sacked. Their citizens would be slaughtered.
So he argues that conventional morality is actually a fatal weakness because you are trying to play by the rules in a world where your enemies are definitely not.
Yeah, you're bringing a rule book to a knife fight.
Which brings up this very specific mythological metaphor he uses to explain this division between the ideal and the real. He talks about Chiron the Centaur.
Right, the mythological creature who tutored ancient heroes like Achilles. The centaur is, well, it's the perfect symbol for Machiavelli's ideal ruler.
Because it represents two totally distinct natures.
Exactly. He states there are two ways of contesting. By law, which is proper to men, and by force, which is proper to beasts.
And in a perfect world, the law would be enough.
Sure, but human nature is flawed, and the law frequently fails. Therefore, a prince must know how to use the beast. A ruler must embody both the human intellect and the animal instinct.
Operating with only one of those natures simply isn't durable. But when you have to play the bees, you can't just be a roaring lion.
No, not at all.
The text specifically says you have to be a fox to discover the snares and traps, and a lion to terrify the wolves.
Right. Relying solely on the brute strength of the lion is a massive mistake because a lion can be easily tricked. The lion has raw, overwhelming power, but it is entirely blind to cunning traps.
While the fox sees the traps perfectly but lacks the physical weight to fight off a pack of wolves?
Exactly. So a leader needs the deceptive radar of the fox combined with the sheer, terrorizing capacity of the lion.
And Machiavelli points directly to Pope Alexander VI as the ultimate historical embodiment of this deception.
Which feels wild to read, right? Considering he was the Pope.
It really is. You'd expect him to be the ultimate moral compass. But Machiavelli writes that Alexander VI did nothing else but deceive men. He never actually did what he promised.
Because he fundamentally understood human simplicity. Machiavelli explains the mechanism behind this constant deception. He says men are so desperately subject to their present necessities that the deceiver will always find someone willing to be deceived.
People are constantly looking for short-term solutions to their immediate problems.
Right. If you confidently promise them what they want to hear right now, they will willfully ignore your entire history of broken promises.
Okay, so let's unpack the real-world application of this. Is he basically saying a leader needs to act like a modern corporate PR department?
How do you mean?
Like projecting one set of values, claiming to care deeply about the community, while ruthlessly doing the exact opposite behind closed doors for profit. Is it actually injurious to just be a genuinely good person?
It is entirely injurious, according to the text. Machiavelli lists 5 good qualities: merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious.
The classics.
Right. But the danger lies in having these qualities and always observing them. If you are deeply, genuinely merciful and a rebellion starts, your mercy will paralyze you.
You'll hesitate.
Exactly. You'll hesitate to crush it, the rebellion will spread, and thousands will die. So your personal morality actually becomes a form of selfishness that dooms the state.
Wow. But he emphasizes that appearing to have them is immensely useful.
Oh, vital. A leader must have a mind ready to switch to the exact opposite when the winds of fortune demand it.
He writes this line, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but very few actually touch or interact with the reality of who you are."
The masses are always taken in by the appearance of a thing.
Which brings us to a massive contradiction a leader has to manage. If you are constantly shape-shifting between the man, the fox, and the lion,
Right.
if you are projecting piety one day and executing rivals the next, how do you maintain authority? Don't you just look erratic and untrustworthy?
You would think so. But Machiavelli argues that the one thing a ruler can never, ever survive is being despised. And he directly links being despised to a lack of traditional, decisive masculinity.
He actually gives a specific checklist of traits that make a prince contemptible. He explicitly warns that a prince becomes hated if he is considered fickle, frivolous, effeminate, mean-spirited, or irresolute.
He fundamentally equates being a bad ruler with being soft. Instead of those soft traits, a leader must project greatness, courage, gravity, and fortitude.
So it's about establishing an aura of absolute finality.
Precisely. When a leader makes a judgment in private dealings with subjects, that judgment must be seen as irrevocable. If people think they can change your mind with enough pleading or pressure, you lose your aura of strength.
That unwavering projection of iron will is what prevents conspiracies.
Exactly.
But wait, if a leader must never appear soft or changeable, what happens when they actually have to discipline their own people? If you are constantly punishing people to project this iron will, aren't you going to be deeply hated?
And this gets to the most famous debate in the text, right? Cruelty versus clemency. Is it safer to be feared or loved?
Yes. I'm looking at this example he gives of Scipio, who historically is considered one of the greatest Roman commanders.
Oh, Scipio's fascinating here.
Scipio was known for his incredible forbearance and compassion. But Machiavelli points out that this compassion directly led to his army rebelling against him in Spain.
The psychology there is just mind-blowing. Because Scipio was too easygoing, he gave his soldiers more license than strict military discipline allowed.
Right.
He prioritized being seen as a good, kind man over maintaining order. Someone in the Senate actually called him the corrupter of the Roman soldiery.
Because Machiavelli believes that men are inherently ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous.
Yeah, he doesn't have a high opinion of humanity.
Yeah.
Because of that base nature, love is preserved only by a link of obligation. And human beings will break that link of obligation the second it becomes advantageous for them to do so.
But fear is preserved by a dread of punishment, which never fails, which explains why Machiavelli contrasts Scipio with Hannibal.
Hannibal's the perfect counterexample. He led a massive, diverse army of different races and cultures across foreign lands for years, and there was never a single dissension or mutiny.
That's incredible.
And Machiavelli attributes this directly to Hannibal's inhuman cruelty. Short-sighted writers condemn his brutality, but that very ferocity is what made him revered and terrible in the eyes of his soldiers.
He established a baseline of absolute dread.
Yes. Without it, his other tactical virtues just wouldn't have been enough to hold that coalition together.
It's a chilling realization that weak, compassionate leadership might actually breed more chaos and death than a tyrant. The text uses the Roman Emperor Severus to synthesize this perfectly, right?
Oh, Severus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a new man who brutally seized power. But he managed to keep the army friendly and the people awed.
He committed immense violence, but his supreme renown protected him from the hatred that destroyed weaker, softer emperors.
Because the key distinction Machiavelli makes is how the cruelty is applied. Cruelty used properly is applied all at once, in a single terrifying stroke to secure power.
You eliminate the threats completely, and then you stop.
Exactly. This sudden absolute violence prevents the ongoing daily murders and robberies that arise from a state slowly descending into anarchy, which happens when the ruler is too merciful to crack down. True strength means making the brutal choice instantly.
So why does a leader need this absolute ironclad decisiveness? Why all this obsession with irrevocable judgments and terrifying force?
Because according to the text, they are constantly battling a chaotic, unpredictable universe.
Machiavelli calls this cosmic chaos fortune, and his description of how a leader should handle fortune features perhaps the most shockingly gendered metaphor in his entire philosophy.
He concedes that fortune is the arbiter of roughly half of our actions, leaving the other half to our free will. He first conceptualizes fortune as a raging river in flood.
Sweeping away trees and buildings, tearing down the earth, and ruining everything in its path.
Right. During the flood, everyone yields to its violence because it is just unstoppable.
But a strong leader doesn't just throw their hands up and accept the flood. In fair weather, that leader builds barriers, dams, and canals.
So that when the flood inevitably comes, the chaotic waters are constrained into a channel rather than allowed to wash away the city.
It's about proactive infrastructure, both literally and politically.
Then the text takes that concept of control a massive step further. Machiavelli writes, "Fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under, it is necessary to beat and ill-use her."
Wow.
Yeah. He claims she is mastered by the adventurous and the violent,
Yeah.
rather than by those who proceed coldly and cautiously.
He even writes that she is a lover of young men because they are less cautious, more fiery, and command her with audacity.
It's a very intense, very specific worldview.
It's an incredibly aggressive way to view the universe. He's painting the cosmos itself as an entity that respects and even demands masculine aggression. Does this philosophy leave any room at all for a cautious, thoughtful, methodical leader to succeed?
It leaves room, but with a massive, almost insurmountable caveat regarding human psychology. Machiavelli's ultimate point here is about adaptability.
Adaptability.
Yeah, a cautious man can absolutely succeed if the times happen to require caution. The fatal flaw is that human beings are incredibly rigid. We cannot easily change our fundamental natures.
So if you have spent your whole life succeeding by being cautious,
You won't suddenly know how to become a ruthless lion when the environment shifts.
and when the times require bold action, the cautious man is completely ruined because he hesitates.
Because of that rigidity, Machiavelli concludes it is almost always better to be adventurous, forceful, and impetuous by default.
He uses Pope Julius II as the prime example of this, doesn't he?
He does. Julius succeeded brilliantly because he acted with relentless, borderline reckless impetuosity, especially in his bold military campaign against Bologna.
He moved so fast and with such aggression that he forced the hands of superpowers like Spain and France before they even had time to plan a response.
Exactly. If the circumstances had required a slow, diplomatic approach, Julius would have failed entirely. He wouldn't have known how to stop being aggressive. But the times conformed perfectly to his audacity.
Okay, so we've been talking entirely in theory about centaurs, foxes, lions, and wrestling with the raging river of fortune. But did anyone actually pull this off in reality?
Well, to see what this looks like in practice, we have to turn to the life of Castruccio Castracani.
Castruccio is essentially Machiavelli's ideal prince made flesh. I mean, his origin story sets the stage perfectly. He rose from absolutely nothing.
He was literally a foundling baby, discovered hidden in a vineyard by a priest's sister. From those origins, he basically clawed his way up to become the formidable Lord of Lucca.
He embodies that intense Renaissance masculinity we've been discussing. The text highlights his physical endurance, noting he went without a hat in snow or freezing rain, but pairs it with this deep cunning.
He is the physical lion and the mental fox operating in tandem.
Just look at the tactical depth he shows at the Pass of Seraval. He has an army of only 12,000 men, and he is facing down a massive Florentine force of 30,000.
A standard cautious commander might have retreated or, tried to negotiate, but Castruccio plays the fox.
Right, he knows that meeting them in the open plain would mean being crushed by sheer numbers.
So the night before the battle, he secretly moves his forces and takes over the castle, controlling a narrow mountain pass.
When the Florentine cavalry comes marching up the steep hill the next morning, they are tired and completely unaware that the high ground has been taken.
And then Castruccio's infantry strikes from above.
The Florentines are instantly trapped. They're stuck between the impassable mountains, Castruccio's forces raining down on them, and their own massive infantry blindly pushing up the pass from behind.
He basically uses the terrain to turn their massive numbers into a fatal liability.
He pulls a similar masterstroke at Fucecchio. Again, the Florentines bring an enormous army, 30,000 infantry and 10,000 cavalry.
And Castruccio commands a fraction of that. But he positions his men meticulously so the Florentines have to cross the Arno River to reach him.
The water is up to the Florentine infantry's shoulders.
Exactly. While they are physically struggling, wading through deep water and thick mud, their heavy horses getting bogged down.
Castruccio sends his light infantry armed with javelins to attack them in the water. It's a chilling level of calculation. He doesn't fight their army, he fights their exhaustion and the mud.
But his mastery was equally ruthless off the battlefield. The political pragmatism he shows with the Poggio family is, well, it's the darkest application of Machiavelli's theories.
The Poggio family was incredibly powerful in Lucca. They had actually helped elevate Castruccio to power in the first place.
Right, but they felt under-rewarded and launched an armed rebellion while Castruccio was away.
Then an older, peaceful member of the family, Stefano di Poggio, actually intervenes and stops the rebellion himself.
Stefano then goes to Castruccio to act as a mediator, asking for clemency for his family since they laid down their arms.
This is where Castruccio perfectly executes the trap of the fox.
He graciously thanks Stefano. He tells him he's thrilled the tumult is over and invites the entire family to come surrender on his word of honor.
Publicly praising his own merciful nature.
And the absolute second they surrender and enter his domain, he throws every single one of them in prison and executes them.
Including Stefano, the peaceful old man who ended the rebellion. It's an incredibly cold maneuver.
When asked if he felt any guilt about executing an old friend who had helped him rise to power, Castruccio casually replied that people deceive themselves. He hadn't killed an old friend. He had only killed a new enemy.
He had these dark philosophical catchphrases that perfectly mirrored the prince. He famously claimed, "God is a lover of strong men because one always sees that the weak are chastised by the strong."
He operated with absolute, irrevocable decisiveness. He built the dams against fortune. He eliminated his rivals in one stroke.
Which makes the end of his life a profound, almost tragic irony. Castruccio did everything right according to the textbook of power. So why did his empire completely collapse?
Because of a random gust of wind.
A gust of wind.
After the massive, brilliant victory of Fucecchio, Castruccio stands at the city gates to welcome and thank his returning troops. He wants to project that enduring image of the strongman, the first in the saddle and the last out of it.
Right.
He's standing there, sweating from the battle, when the wind comes off the Arno River, and he catches a chill.
After surviving ambushes, poison plots, and an army of 30,000 swords, a cold breeze takes him down.
That chill turns into a fatal fever. As he lies dying, he calls his heir to his side and realizes the bitter truth.
He admits he made a strategic error in expanding his empire so rapidly through constant warfare.
He is leaving his heir a vast estate, but it is completely insecure. It's surrounded by deeply bitter enemies like Florence, and he hasn't had the years required to consolidate his political power. He just ran out of time.
It perfectly illustrates Machiavelli's ultimate point about the limits of control. You can build all the dams and canals you want. You can master the arts of the fox and the lion.
You can project the most terrifying masculine authority, but fortune always has the final say.
The chaotic river will eventually find a way over the wall.
It highlights a deep tension running through all of Machiavelli's philosophy. He provides a meticulous, ruthless manual for establishing absolute control in a universe that fundamentally resists being controlled.
The perfect leader is still ultimately at the mercy of biology and chance. So what is the core takeaway for you as you reflect on these texts? In Machiavelli's worldview, effective leadership requires an almost theatrical display of absolute strength.
Yeah, to be a man of power in his era meant actively rejecting the luxury of traditional morality.
It meant accepting that to save a city, you might have to lose your soul. You had to embrace both the deception of the fox and the sheer terror of the lion.
Forcefully bending an unpredictable world to your will and punishing irresolution at every single turn.
All while holding the terrifying knowledge that even with flawless execution, the raging river of fortune can still sweep it all away.
It's a heavy burden.
It really is. Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. Earlier, we explored Machiavelli's assertion that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few really know what you are.
Because the masses are continuously taken in by appearances.
Right. Look at our modern world of heavily curated social media profiles, endless political spin, and highly engineered public relations departments.
It's all about optics.
Have we actually outgrown Machiavelli's cynical advice? Or have we just built a society that is perfectly designed to reward the ultimate fox?
In a world obsessed with optics, are we getting any better at seeing through the appearance of a leader, or are we just more eager to be deceived?
It begs the question of whether our modern demands for moral perfection are actually just forcing our leaders to become much better liars.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
Something to mull over until next time. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.